So, Micah 4. My first question, I always like to start my Sunday school. If you ever had Sunday school with me before, teach Sunday schools, is what have you, where are we at? Where are we at in Micah? Like, what have you learned so far? What are some things, takeaways that you guys have to this point?
Warning followed by a sure promise of hope, and forgiveness followed by further warning
Okay.
of God's judgment.
Warning, hope, forgiveness, more warning. Yes, Mike?
Well, we just got done with negative, now we're supposed to have positive for a little bit.
Yeah, chapter 4 is a big positive section. Jeff, we're going to talk about this in a little bit. The 3 sections have the judgment, has a blessing section. This actually has a bigger blessing section and a smaller judgment section. So it's really neat. It's wonderful how the prophets and how the books are written, how they're not all the same. Like, I like the book of Amos because he's preaching to the nations. He's saying, look, woe to you, Edom. And he's talking about all of Israel's enemies. And he says, woe to you, Jerusalem. And I can imagine how Israelite is just, the northern kingdom is just saying, yeah, you just tell them, you stick it to them, stick it to the man. And all of a sudden he says, now you. And the rest of the book he says, let me talk to you now. He had them all excited. He had them like in a lather, talking about it. He turns it on them. And same with Micah. He has all these judgments. He's saying all these prophetic judgments on the nation. He said, but there's blessings coming. But it's a very small section. But now he's going to give them a nice big chunk of blessing with a very small section of judgment. Okay? Which is neat because they need to hear that now. They're ripe for the picking. So it's really neat how if you read through these books, it's not to miss those points in the literary structure. What else?
There's a key word in this book called Remnant.
Yep.
Which supposedly I understand means survivors.
Yep. Survivors, leftovers, people left behind. Right. Which is a beautiful term because we always think like the forgotten ones, the lame, and he'll talk about here the lame and the weak. And in fact, when you get to the Babylonian captivity and you talk about that, how the people left behind were the people who were of no consequence. Babylon took all the great people, like Daniel, like all the people who were prosperous and who are very knowledgeable and very, very strong, and they left the weak behind. Okay, and we think nothing of them. But what should we think of that today? Like, it's like God remembers remembrance. Oh. God remembers the remnant. He's like a snatching stick, burning stick from the fire, or like a leg bone out of a lion's mouth. He has a piece left over, still left over. What can we glean from that? What can be a lesson for your lives today for that? Think about the world around you today. Now, Garrett, don't confuse the kingdom, the Israelite kingdom, with the church. Okay, don't confuse the two. But how can we apply some of this lessons for our lives today? Just the remnant.
God still cares.
God still cares, right?
And we can have hope because we can trust Him.
Right.
And basically, I see it as don't really look at your surroundings.
Right.
Just keep looking to God because your surroundings can change anyway.
How many people like Facebook? Or how many people go on Facebook? Who has a guilty pleasure? Yeah, I go on Facebook. Yeah, I enjoy the videos and stuff like that, different things. Facebook, yeah. But how many people like watch the news? Not a lot of people watch the news, but we watch the news. Yeah. What happens when you get so involved in watching the news?
And you feel depressed.
You feel depressed, right? You feel like you're the only one. Like, I'm left. There's no one left behind. Does that remind you of anyone in the Old Testament?
Is there?
What?
No.
I was hoping so.
Elijah.
Yes, Elijah. I'm the only one left, but God says there's a few hundred prophets left. There's a remnant left. You're not the only one. Don't stop feeling sorry for yourself. God still remembers your remnants. So okay. All right, enough on that. So we're gonna move on here. But the prophetic message, I like just to start from here for my sake to get myself springboarded into the book. Okay, prophetic message. They not only told the future, but they're more into forthtelling. Okay, they demand spiritual insight as well as foresight. They dipped into the past for lessons, and they exhorted the exhortations concerning the present. So we see that with Micah. He goes into the past. He dips into the past. Say what happened before to take hope from. What's happened to them in the past? I wish I had the chart up here to show you what they've been through. They've been through a lot so far to this point. They're a nation now. Now they're a divided nation. But they were through a lot of things. In fact, back when Saul was king, what happened? They didn't have any swords to fight battles. Only Saul and Jonathan were the only ones that had swords in the whole kingdom. Everyone had plowshares and had hooks and stuff like that to fight battles. And they're going against hardened Philistines. So talk about people who had a hard time. Okay? So they dug into the past to go to the future. 4 major themes. To expose sinful practice to the people, to call people back to moral, civil, and ceremonial laws of God. The prophets do that a lot. They try to call people back to God, back to His law. And I don't want to confuse something. We're not talking about legalism here, okay? The do's and don'ts. We're talking more about a lifestyle, a way of living life. Okay? Legalism is saying what I do is best, so you need to follow me. No, what God says is best, you need to follow Him. Okay? He laid down laws not for our detriment, but for our benefit. And the prophets are calling them back to that. They're heeding them back to a great life. Not to a life of servitude and depression, but they're calling it back to a life of joy and fulfillment. You know, think about that. Micah is saying, look, you guys are looking around you and you're listening to these prophets who are telling you, don't listen to this guy Micah. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Micah is saying, no, you're missing the point. And I love the analogy, and I was my old youth pastor many years ago, many years ago. Jace was my original youth pastor, and Jeff became my youth pastor for a very short time. But he says, God's giving you a Camaro or a Mustang, and you wanted a Pinto instead. You remember those Pintos, those bucket seats, so that? So God says, I want you to have the best things in life. All you have to do is follow what I have laid down for you. Because it's not a map of destruction or a drudgery. It's actually a map of fulfillment. Okay, which I find very beautiful. You go through the whole Old Testament, you see that. When they're following God's will. How do you feel when you're following God's will? Great. How do you feel when you're in God's Word? Awesome. Great. You feel alive. You feel like, I can do this. You don't feel alone anymore. You don't feel depressed. Now, is life bad? Oh, yes. Life stinks. Trust me, I know. I have a few things in my bucket that I'm living life with. But it doesn't matter. I can live life to its fullest. I can live life with great joy because I know I have a future hope. If I follow God and do what He asked me to do, I have life fulfilled. Not life of great blessings, because I have a sin nature. I have a sinful body, a body that's decaying. I don't want this. I don't want this world. I want heaven. I want my future claim. Okay? But a lot of us do what? We try to hang on. Like, I'm not letting go of this world. I'm trying to take everything I can with me. Why? This stuff is no good. It's corrupt. So, they warned of the coming judgment. Prophets anticipated the coming Messiah. And this is where we see we'll see in 5, in Micah 5, you'll see a lot of that coming forth. Prophets spoke in context of the background of their times. Okay? We see that in Micah, right? He talks a lot about what's happening around him. He talks a lot about what's going on. He said, hey guys, this is what's happening. Now a lot of us get a little bit bogged down and get confused because we get so caught up in the Hebrew language, and we just get so like, we throw it away before we even just try to even dig into it even further. Be patient with yourself. It's like someone says, like with marriage. Marriage is like, people end up getting divorced right when marriage is getting interesting. That's when you just hang in there. Right when, that's when life starts really happening. Hang in there. Grab onto life with both hands and move forward. Okay? So, they understand the historical and cultural circumstances. What's going on around them. And we'll see here 4 things emphasized, chronological points here. Their own day, captivity and return, the first coming of Christ, and the Messianic kingdom. We see that playing over and over again. We're going to see that in Micah 4. We're going to see all 4 of these things play out. Okay, I like this. This is my favorite. Have you ever talk through the Bible? Like, it's just like a quick word picture. This is Mike saying, Micah, Mike. And Israel has their day in court. Okay, this is your day in court. Okay, we talked a lot about judgment and blessings. Okay, Micah has them on trial. Okay, fine. This is your day in court. What have you done? Let's look at it. You know what's interesting when God works with us? God's not interested in what we have done, or what we will do, or what great accomplishments we've made, or what great failures we have done in our lives. He's more interested in what are we doing with our life? What are you doing? Are you sitting still? Are you just sitting by the wayside? Yeah, you failed. Get back up. Great, you have great accomplishments, but they're going to fade tomorrow. Okay? This is what have you done? And Mike is looking at Israel and saying, what have you guys done? All they did was serve idols. He says, you fools. And Isaiah says it quite eloquently. A guy goes out and cuts down a tree. Half the tree he cuts up for wood and makes a fire, and the other half he makes into an idol and worships it and says, thank you for the fire you've given me. Huh? I don't understand. Oh, great wood. You just burnt the thing up. My God can't be burnt up. I can't chop him down. I can't make him half into fuel and half into a god, a deity. He can neither speak nor do anything. So, it's interesting. You guys are fools. You're dinglings. And there's some other things we could choose. All right. For sake of time, we got to keep on moving here because we've already wasted 15 minutes. So, the structure of Micah. Micah contains 3 major sections, beginning with the call to hear. Okay, chapters 1 to 2, 3 to 5, 6 to 7. Jeff told me you guys are familiar with this. You guys have been going over this stuff. Repetition is always key. Okay, but I love this thing here is to hear. What is so important about the word to hear? Did Jeff go over this with you, and do you remember? Each section says hear, to hear.
Well, I think it's biblically it means to listen intently with the intention of acting upon it.
Have you ever met a busybody? And usually we say women are busybodies, but men are just as bad. Okay, who like to gossip. What's the juicy tale you're going to tell me today? And boy, are they going to hear you, aren't they? They're going to hang on every word you're going to say. In fact, they're going to misinterpret half the things you say too. Okay? But God says to hear, listen, pay attention. Okay, come on. If you're so interested in gossip, let me give you some gossip. Okay, to use the vernacular here. Okay? So to hear, pay attention. Each of these sections begin with judgment and ends with the promise of restitution. Okay? So it starts with the judgment, but it ends with restitution. Why is this so important? Why do you think it's so important that God does this with us? Why do you think why do you just say just judgment and that's it? Just skip the restitution. We deserve it. We deserve His ever punishing hand. Why do we need restitution?
You get depressed.
He's merciful.
Get depressed? What?
He's a merciful God.
He's a merciful God. Right. How many people, when I studied the Old Testament is my favorite section of the Bible. I love the New Testament too, don't get me wrong. But when I was in college, I studied the Old Testament more. I did a lot of my biblical studies in the Old Testament. And one thing I've learned is, people always say God in the Old Testament is judgment, wrath, punishment. But they fail to understand is, He is not. Okay? That's the one aspect that we see because He brings that out a lot. And He shows us He has to discipline sin. But He's also very merciful, patient, kind. He's a jealous God. He loves us. He wants to be part of our lives. I've seen it over and over and over and over and over and over again in the Old Testament. Okay? Then we get the New Testament into the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and we see Jesus walk on the scene, who shows us what? Right. We see God, and we see God incarnate in front of us. We see God before us. Okay? But was Christ judgmental? Be careful when you answer this.
When he needed to be.
At times, he said what it had to be said. Many times we as Christians like to sugarcoat things. Okay? Which in the human nature we need to. Okay? Because in the human nature we have a hard time saying the right thing the right way. Okay? Don't get me wrong. So sometimes sugarcoating something we all need to do. But when it comes to Christ was perfect, and He was able to say it in such a way that hit to the heart. He knew what was happening in the heart. Okay? But He also judged the heart. He rightly divided what was going on inside their mind and their hearts. But He also showed compassion. He showed a loving side, a kind side. So I saw the God of the Old Testament in Jesus just as much as I saw Him in the Old Testament. Okay? So I just want to put that out there. So the whole book alternates between these two themes. We see that going over and over again. It's the secular, which is neat about the Old Testament. A lot of times they have cycles or they have patterns that they follow. Why do you think they have patterns that they follow? Why do you think they have patterns they follow? Why do you think patterns they need to follow?
To learn.
To learn, right. To show us. Repetition is always key. We're thick-headed people. We're raw-hided mules. You know, you liked that one, didn't you? So we have a hard time understanding, and sometimes God repeats Himself, but He also repeats Himself in different ways. He doesn't say it the same way twice. I love. We're going to talk about the book of Narnia, and I like the if you're familiar with the books of Narnia, Aslan in the it just slipped my mind. Is it not Prince Caspian, but
Voyage of the Dawn Treader.
what?
Voyage of the
Dawn
Dawn
Treader.
Treader.
No, the horse and his boy.
Yeah.
Oh.
Horse and his boy. Aslan disciplines the one of the main characters in there, and I just slipped my mind. No, that was the right one. Forget it. It slipped my mind. But anyway, Aslan makes a statement. Says he doesn't do the same thing twice. He always does something different, but it's the outcome is still the same. Okay, but he has a different way of dealing with people in different ways. Okay. Length of judgment and restoration section tells us something, and we're going to look at that. In each section, there's a lengthy judgment message. It's followed by a short restoration of promise. Okay? Here, he wants to hit home in the two sections. He wants to hit home that there's judgment coming. You need to pay attention. Why do you think that was so important? That he hit that so heavy?
Wants to wake them up.
To wake them up. But who has their ears?
False prophets.
The false prophets. Someone else has their ears. Someone has to kick someone in the hiney. Give them a little swift kick. Say, look guys, wake up. Now, do they respond? Do they respond well?
No.
Many people do not. There are probably some that did, but we a lot of times hear the negative parts of it. We don't respond well. In section 3, we have the same pattern. In section 2, however, we have a reversal of the pattern. We have a short judgment message followed by a long message of salvation. I'm going to keep on moving here. Salvation promises directly a return or reversal. The judgment predicts in all three. Judgment is predictions in all three sections. Key word remnant. We talked about that. It's going to come up. It's in each section. The word appears in all three sections. Okay, like I said, I'm not familiar with all Jeff's slides. These are not my slides. These are Jeff's slides. So I'm still not familiar with his brain and my brain think differently. So we never ever thought the same. We have the same likes, but we don't pattern our Twitter. So there's hope. Micah gives true hope in the chapters 4 and 5, in contrast to the false prophets offered by the 4 higher prophets. Okay, Micah gives the true hope. That's what's neat about Micah, is that he's offering us something true. Do we have that today? I like to relate things to today too, because it's not going to be any good to us if I teach Ezekiel's temple, but you're suffering from another problem. If you have something else going on in your life that I don't know about or I can't do, unless I bring it true to life. Is there something that we have today that we have true hope, but other people are offering us something different? I was saying, yeah.
The government offers us hope, but it's not the answer.
Right.
But we have Christ to give us the true hope.
But it sounds so good. Really?
Stuff.
I mean, I'm serious. It sounds like good stuff. It does. If you listen to it. Now, I know we could be cynical and say, no, I'm already not thinking. How many people know what rat poison is? You know what rat poison is? What's rat poison made out of?
Arsenic?
Arsenic? How much arsenic is in rat poison?
Just a little.
Just a little.
Tiny bit.
The rest of it is good food to eat. Okay? So, when Satan came to us in the garden and he tells Eve, you truly will not die that day that you eat that fruit, was he telling the truth, telling a lie, or confusing a lot of things? Telling her a little bit of rat poisoning, She didn't die that day, because a lot of people say, well, see, she ate it and she didn't die. Well, what died that day? The most important part. Spiritual part, right. So, but yeah, the government has great things for us. The 4 higher prophets. These pastors out there have these feel-good messages. These messages say, if you only pray harder, if you only give more, yeah, I'm a proponent you should pray. I'm a proponent you should give. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you put your eggs in the basket and say, if I pray, it will happen. If I give, it will happen. My my sister-in-law, my wife's brother's wife, my sister-in-law, brother has leukemia. It's a reoccurring leukemia. He goes to this church. It's a prosperity gospel church, and he says he's healed. He's feeling better. He had a couple treatments. He says, now I'm healed. Take the port out. I'm going to stop my medicine. And the doctor says we give him about 3 months to live. He says, I'm healed. I got a message from the Lord that I'm healed. Okay. Well, I liked how my sister-in-law is handling this and saying that she's praying for God's healing, that God would heal him. But the healing might not happen on this side of heaven. See, many times we try to think of this is how we're going to pigeonhole God. We're going to say, God, we want your healing. God says, how about you come home with me and I'll heal you then? I'm happy with that. I'm fine with that. But many times people give us these false hopes. Okay? Don't buy into those lies. Because when we say we pray enough, what happens when we pray all the time and it doesn't happen the way we want it to happen? What happens?
Despair, give up.
Despair, give up, lose hope, don't believe in God. God's not real. Okay? We start believing the for hire prophets. What were the people that day believing?
Peace and prosperity.
Yeah.
Right. They're at a great time in their lives. They had plenty of wine, women, and riches. I forget how it goes.
Wine, women, and song.
Wine, women, and song. Okay, I couldn't think of all that. Tell you it's been a rough week. But just slipped my mind again. But if you buy into that, then you lose hope. But Micah had the true hope. He says, this is the true hope. All right. The hope of the Jews was the coming kingdom. Okay. Do not confuse this with the Christian problem. Okay. We think many times that church, not we. I'm saying we as a general term. People think that the church age is replacing the Jews. That's not true. If you read through the whole Bible, God's people are the Jews. Okay? We are His church. It's different. Okay? And we don't have time to go through that whole theological, eschatological thing. And Earl would probably be better at that than I am. Because I'm not well versed in the whole eschatology. But historically, yes. But historically, God's dealing with the Jews. Okay? And that's how Micah he's talking about the kingdom, coming kingdom. Okay? The hope for the Jews is the coming kingdom. Okay? The Assyrians are not the ones that are going to prevail. The Babylonians are not the ones that are going to prevail. Okay? The one who's going to prevail is who? The what?
Messiah.
The Messiah. He is going to prevail. Okay? So be careful when we talk about Old Testament and New Testament terms that we don't get the two confused. We don't get those interraveled. Okay? I would love to spend more time on this, but I don't want to lose anybody, and I don't want to put a false narrative out there. But just to put that out there, the coming kingdom is what the Jews are looking for. Okay, their kingdom that they're going to be established here on earth with their Messiah. God will restore Israel as the head of all nations. The Gentile nations will stream to Jerusalem to take part in their blessings. Justice will be the key feature of the kingdom. I love this. Many times when I lose hope or I despair, or when I lose faith, okay? Trust me, I do. We all do. We all find ourselves at the dark moments at night, 12 midnight, when it's dark outside and all hope is lost, and you're worried and the boogeyman's at the door, whatever else goes on in your life. Picture what you will. We all have them. We all have dark moments. I remember that one day the king will reign on his throne, okay? And justice will prevail. Justice will be key. We look around us today, we think, oh, all hope is lost. You know, government is failing us. This is failing us. Micah is saying, justice will prevail. Maybe not today, but it will. Okay? There'll be an absence of war. Wouldn't that be awesome? Having no war. You know, what's the beauty pageant's number one
World peace.
world peace, right?
Oh.
Gag you with the spoon. You know, it's like, really, come up with an original answer. It's like, come on. World peace is not going to happen here on earth. It's not going to happen until the Messiah comes and puts down just rule. We see in the language here in Micah 4:1, in the last days, after many days, days are coming. These take places in stages. We see a return from exile. We see Israel being taken out of the land, and they come back. We see the first coming of Messiah, the last days of the prophets having arrived. So when Messiah is here, we see the last days of the prophets coming to a close, because the Messiah now is finally here. He's finally fulfilled what the prophets have been foretelling. The true Messiah is on the earth, here. And then finally in the last days, okay, the second coming, we see the judgment of blessings we see in the last days. So we see these references here taking part in these three sections. Okay? Which is neat, because we always see in Scripture this threefold message. We see like the land, seed, and blessing. We see the intermittent, quick view, like the land or the seed. We see Isaac being born. Then we see David being born on the kingdom, on the throne. Then we finally see the Messiah, the ultimate seed, being born. Okay, we see that fulfilled. We see that three parts. So we see here, just even in the exile, we see the return and the judgment and the restoration that it happens. Now, why is it important to learn from history that God judges but then restores? We talked about this a little bit. Why is it good for us to know this? Because it does what for us? It
Gives us hope.
gives us hope. Because we know we mess up. God will judge us for it. We need to answer for our crimes. We need to give forgiveness, which has been paid for on the cross, which we have to clear away, and then we are restored again to a relationship with Him. I'm not talking about return to salvation. Salvation is once and for all. But I'm talking about getting back in a right relationship with God. Okay, is that clear? Before I lose anybody? I don't believe you lose your salvation when you sin. That's been a done deal. Once you're saved, you're always saved. Okay, it's a scriptural thing, and we can go down through any references. But when you have sin in your life, you disrupt that relationship you have with someone else. Think of your own relationship with your family, with your daughters. Oz has a problem with his daughter. There's a problem between you. You need to clear that up before the relationship can continue again. Does she stop becoming your daughter? No. She's always your daughter. She'll never stop being that. The problem is you cannot have communion, or you cannot come together in a right relationship until that is cleared away. Same thing with God. I love how God uses the family. That's why the family is so important, because we are the nucleus of how God works with us. Okay? All right. I like this. What time do I have here? I have a few minutes. I'm going to take a couple minutes here. C.S. Lewis, my favorite book of Narnia was The Last Battle. Okay? It's the last book of the C.S. Lewis trilogy, the Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, which actually starts with the Magician's Nephew, but we always know is the Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. But The Last Battle, I find very interesting and very uplifting and encouraging to me in my own walk, as a allegory or as something that I could see in a real life today circumstance, okay, that I can relate to even better than I can even to the Old Testament, because it happened so long ago, or in terms that are a little bit more foreign to me, okay? Because you got to remember, the Old Testament was written to the Jews, was written to the Near Eastern culture people, and was written many thousands of years ago, okay? So, I found this very interesting. Tyrion, the last king of Narnia, okay, his friend Jewel, which was a unicorn. Now, I know it's going to be very fanciful, but they're best friends. In fact, Jewel and Tyrion are enjoying the day out at the countryside, out at the cottage, and they're enjoying the beautiful sunshine. All is well. Everything is going well with that day. In fact, Tyrion was finding himself very bored and very complacent, because he's like, nothing's happening in life. Everything is good. no battles, no fights, nothing. Well, there was a problem that arose down the river, Shift and Puzzle, an ape and a donkey. They devised a plan to trick the Narnians into serving the Calormans, which were the bad guys, or I can't think
Arch enemy?
what?
Arch enemy?
Archetype or arch enemy type people. Calormans were the bad people. To devise a plan with them to take over Narnia, or to Shift. Actually, Shift wanted just to get his own pleasures met. So Shift is devising it, but here the Calormans wanted to take over Narnia. Well, here they started doing this. They started invading the land and taking over. Well, here Tyrion and Jewel didn't know this. They're sitting back in a lap of luxury, not worrying about a thing. Okay? Well, all of a sudden they get brought into the problem. They came down and found out that this was happening. So they sent word back to Caer-Paravel, which was the palace, and here that was taken over already. Many people were dead already and dying in the war. That Tyrion and Jewel did not know was happening. They're oblivious to all this was happening across the land because they were still in their microcosm of their world. And here they're trying to fight off the Calormans and trying to battle them off. But all hope was lost. They couldn't do it. They were struggling and having a hard time at it. The Calormans were overpowering them. The Narnians were trying to fight back, but Tyrion and Jewel were trying to do their best they can. And they get shoved into this little shack, which transports them into, which in that term was their death, was their finality in Narnia, and shoved them into Aslan's land, okay, to another place. And there they meet up with Aslan and other people who also passed away in life. So it's like all of a sudden, it's like all hope was lost, and in an instant, it's like, it's not lost. We're now where we're supposed to be. We're in paradise. And here we see with Micah is telling the people, like, look, you think all hope is lost because judgment is happening. But I'm going to show you that it's not. The Messiah is coming. There's great things going to happen. This is only for a little while, but you need to turn from your ways. You need to turn from what you're doing and turn from your ways. And if you ever get a chance to read the series, The Last Battle is a really good book to read. It just transports you into a whole thing. And I talk about that new heavens and how it's going to be, and like onward and inward, and the vastness, and meeting old friends and stuff like that. New Testament, 1 John 2:18 says, "Dear children, this is the last hour. And I say to you, as you have heard that the Antichrist is coming, even now many Antichrists have come. This is how we know it is our last hour." So even the New Testament is bringing about that this is the last moments. These are the last days that we're in. In the past, God spoke to our ancestors through the prophets, and many times and in various ways. But in these last days, He has spoken to us by His Son, whom He's appointed heir of all things. And through Him, He's also made the universe. Hebrews 1:1-2. And then 2 Timothy says this, he said, "But mark this, there will be a terrible time in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, pride, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy." Sound familiar? Sounds very familiar. But like I was saying, is like with the last battle with the Narnia, it's like we think all hope is lost. Like we're fighting an uphill battle. Like we have no more enemy, no more allies beside us. We're all alone. Like Earl said, like Elijah, he was the only one left. Woe is me. I'm the only one left. What am I going to do? Again, he's in his microcosm. God says, no, you're not. I have hundreds of prophets beside. Don't worry, you're not the only one. And in fact, if you are the only one, that's all you need. Because I'm with you. Okay? Yeah, we're in our last days. But there are greater things coming. And that's what Micah is going to tell us in Micah 4. He says there are greater days coming. So let's talk about it. Let's get into this. The mountain of the Lord's temple will be established as the highest of the mountains. It It will be exalted above the hills, and the peoples will stream to it. Okay, so what happened in the previous verses, therefore, because of you, Zion will be plowed like a field, Jerusalem will become a heap of rubble, the temple a hill, a mound, overgrown with its thickets. So earlier on in chapter 3, I think it was, it says that Zion and the temple are going to be rubble. They're going to be plowed under. I remember studying the Old Testament and understanding, like, I was saddened every time the temple was taken over, like it was taken down, because that was the place of the Lord, especially Ezekiel's temple, the temple in the New Testament after Christ goes to heaven, transcends to heaven, and 70 AD when the temple was destroyed completely. In fact, they said that they took stone upon stone was taken apart because the gold melted down in between the mortar joints. So they ripped it apart literally. It became a heap, just a heap. It always broke my heart. I know it's just a building. Well, how would you feel if someone came in here and tore down our church? How would you feel? It's sad. It's a building, but you have an identity here. This is identity. So here, their identity was heaped up and plowed under. But Micah says, he says, don't worry. He says, it's going to be on the highest mountain. It will be rebuilt. It's coming back. This is not the end. This is because of you. This is because of me, God says. Okay? So don't lose hope. Many times as a parent, it's very difficult, especially like with my son. It's very, having 3 daughters is very easy. I don't know. I don't know how Mariah was for you, but my daughters were easy breezy. No emotion, no drama, no whatever. Maybe a little bit. What?
I was an angel.
Okay, you're an angel. Mariah, I love girls. In fact, I wish Timmy was a girl.
So now's your chance.
Yeah, that's true. That's my chance.
Yeah. Possible now, right?
But dealing with Timmy, and dealing with him as a son, he many times challenges me on many levels of borders. Like doing things. It's like, I'm going to do it myself and I'm going to do it my way. The boy's only 8. And he was doing this since he was 5. I'm like, really? So I had to learn to say, okay, go for it. And he fails utterly miserable. And he's like, so now I get to the point, he's like, okay. He goes, wait a minute. No. He goes, I don't want you to stop, because if you stop, I'm going to fail. He's realizing that now. But it's like, many times it's like I had to realize, it's like I had to let him become the rubble heap before I could help him become the mountain. Okay? And it's hard, because God had to do that with us many times. What rubble heaps do you have in your own life? You think you messed up. You know how many people I've been teaching the parents class, before COVID, I was teaching the parenting class. You know how many people came to me and says, we've been such horrible parents. Now our kids are teenagers and we don't know what to do. I said, first of all, you need to forgive yourself. Second of all, you got to realize you're human. Third of all, you got to realize your kids are adults, even when they're 5. You're raising adults. They had to make their own decisions. Okay? Yeah, you messed up, but you can fix it. You can pray for them. You can still invest in them. They're still moldable. So work on that. But it's like many times, like if you think like, oh, we're done. No, you're not done. You're done when you die. When you die, then you're done. Okay? Because you can't do anything more after that. If you do, we got to question your death certificate. There's hope. Many nations will come and say, come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the temple of the God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways so that we may walk in his paths. The law will go out from Zion, the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. Many nations. Right now, they're a mockery. Jerusalem is a joke. Who else is a joke today anymore? We are. United States, Christians. We're a joke to everyone else. But you know what? My God's not laughing. Because he's realizing that he's actually sobbing and crying over the brokenness that's happening down here. But soon, when I say soon, I'm not saying tomorrow, I'm not saying this year, next year, I'm not saying 20 years from now, but it could be soon. It could be 100 years from now, and I could still say soon. Soon, many nations will come and say, come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord. Let us go seek God. They will realize one day. They will realize. That's why I love the passage in the Bible that says, every knee shall bow and every tongue will confess. God does not have to break my knee to bow because my knee's already bowed. He doesn't have to make my tongue loose to say he is Lord because he's already loosened it. But he will have to other people. Sometimes nations will come to serve Israel, and sometimes they'll share in partners in their blessing. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. See, darkness covers the earth, and thick darkness is over the people. But the Lord will rise upon you, and his glory appears over you. Nations will come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your dawn. Do you ever see, I'll give you a little bit of history, a little insight of me. You know what my greatest fear is? I tell this to all my, when I teach elementary kids, I tell them all this, they love this. My biggest fear is the dark. I'm afraid of the dark. Snakes, okay, yeah, I get the heebie-jeebies of snakes, but I could deal with them. I could deal with anything, but the dark I cannot handle. So I have a nightlight on in my house. I do. I can't sleep without a nightlight. I've slept with a nightlight all my life. Even married now, I had to have a nightlight on. But in the dark, in the pitch black of night, that nightlight on in the bathroom, we have a master bathroom, in the bathroom, shines up my whole bedroom. It makes it bright. So imagine in the darkness, a single light, and how everyone comes to the brightness. When you're in the dark, nothing attracts your attention more than the light. Okay? Why do you think so many people shy away from the light?
It exposes you.
Exposes you, right. Why do you think so many people come to the light? You ever think of that?
You're drawn to the light.
What?
You're drawn to the light.
You're drawn to the light. But why? Why do you think we're drawn to the light?
You can see.
You see, right? But it exposes you. Do you see the whole verse of it? Why do you think people are drawn to the light? Why do you think in the workplace, if you are a true Christian, and you didn't say a word to anybody, I've had this happen to me many times before. People come up to me and say, "You're a Christian, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yes." I said, "I could tell. Nothing special about me. I didn't do anything special." But they see something different. Okay? They see something different that they want. People in darkness want that. But they're afraid because they're going to be exposed. Then they run away from it. See, a lot of times we think people live in darkness because they want to. They like to, trust me, there are good things that happen in the dark. Some fun things that happen in the dark. But they don't last. They're very short and very fleeting. Okay? Satan doesn't tell you that. Okay? He tells you that they're fun, but they're fleeting. They go away. But the problem is people want the light. So that's why I find this interesting. Arise, shine, your light has come. The glory of the Lord is rised upon you. What's interesting about this? The glory of the Lord rises upon you. What's been the message all along in Micah? You messed up. You're judged. You failed. You done it now. My son, I'm going to use him as our example. He goes, I really messed up my life now. That's what he says to me a couple times. I'm like, no, you didn't. It's going to be okay in a few minutes. Don't worry. I said, you just need to learn from it. Just don't do it again. But the glory of the Lord will rise upon you. Okay? There's hope. You see the hope that we see? When I hear the word glory of the Lord, is it anything that I have? Who has it? Right. The glory of the Lord rises upon you. Upon you. Not the glory of the Lord rises and that's it. Upon you. I thought that was very interesting. See the darkness covers the earth, thickness. Nations will come abroad. In that day there will be a highway from Egypt to Assyria. The Assyrians will go to Egypt and the Egyptians to Assyria. The Egyptians and the Assyrians will worship together. In that day Israel will be the third along with Egypt and Assyria, a blessing on the earth. The Lord Almighty will bless them, saying, Blessed be Egypt, my people, Assyria, my handiwork, and Israel, my inheritance. That's a lot of mouthful. But what's interesting about that? Who are the Assyrians and the Egyptians? Enemies. Okay? Assyrians were awful people. Wicked people. You know, and I think, did Jeff share to you shared some of the graphic things that they used to do, people? Yeah. Horrible, horrible things. But he's going to say, he said, they're my handiwork. Egyptians. You know, Egyptians are mentioned many times in Scripture, over and over again. They're forbade to come into the temple for worship, but they're not forbade to be in Israel. Okay? The only thing different about the Egyptians is we're not allowed to go back to Israel. It's not allowed to go back to Egypt to go back because God wanted them to be distinct. You're no longer underneath their yoke. Okay? You're separate from them. But it's interesting. Egyptians are my people. How many times have you thought the Old Testament, these people needed to be cut off and thrown away? But here we see God doing what? Blessed be Egypt, my people, the Assyrians, my handiwork. Israel, my inheritance. Israel is his inheritance. Israel is his people. It's his people he works through. How about you today? Do you have people that you cut off in your life because they're no good or they're not worthy anymore because they've done something that might have been a little bit off color or they said something that hurt your feelings? You know, I do. I have some people like that I don't associate with. It's not right. Because maybe I'm the only Jesus that they'll ever know. Maybe I'll be the only God that they'll ever come to. And quote unquote, I'm going to use this in quotes, worship the God that they see through me. Because they can't see it through the church. I like Casting Crowns. One of their songs, what is it? All Lonely People? Or Only One? How does it go? Look into my song experts. Yeah, she's going in the wrong direction at 1,000 miles an hour. Forget it. But anyway, the song basically talks about how like the music video shows this woman through the whole thing interacting but not interacting with Christians. She sees Christians having a good time and she has a lonely life and she's sad and lonely and depressed and she tries to go to church but people basically don't interact with her. They shun her basically. And she's like, why do I want to do that? And then she crumbles up a tract that they put down on her table and she was waiting on. She crumbles up and sat down and was tears and one of the Christian women came back and sat down with her. I was able to talk to her, was able to interact with her. You know, are we like that? Do we shun people that maybe need us? I'm sorry. He will judge between many peoples. He will settle disputes for strong nations far and wide. They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nations will not take up sword against nation, nor will they train for war anymore. That's when world peace will happen. Okay? That's when world peace will happen. When he judges and settles disputes. Because believe you me, when he settles the dispute, it's settled. There is no argument. Why do you think there will be no argument with God? Just because he throws his power around? I thought about this week, and I thought about this actually in past weeks before. When Christ rules in the millennial kingdom, do you think people disobey him because he's throwing his weight around? I'm God, you need to follow me. Or do you think he gets to the heart of the matter? Remember the Jesus of the New Testament. He gets to the heart of the matter. What are you really thinking? Why are you two upset at each other? Is it because you said this? And did she say that because you said that? And you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to use you as an example. You guys are fine. But here, beat the swords into plowshares. It was a reversal in the Old Testament. They took their plowshares and made swords. Their pruning hooks, they made into spears. Okay? So it's a reversal. Again, we see the reversal things happening. Everyone will sit underneath their own vine. Jeff talked about cash crops before. You will live at peace. During the judges' time, we only have a minute to go here. During the judges' time, people would come in and invade their country and steal their food. You don't have to worry about that anymore. You'll be at peace. You can live at peace. Going back to, I was using that last battle in Narnia. Tyrion and Joel was sitting underneath the sun, enjoying the day. No, they were at peace. War was not affecting them. They were at peace. Let's get that. In that day declares the Lord, I will gather the lame, I will assemble the exiles, and those I have brought to grief. I will make the lame my remnant, and those driven away a strong nation. The Lord will rule over them in Mount Zion from that day and forever. As for you, watchtower of the flock, stronghold, daughter of Zion, the former dominion will be restored to you. To the kingship will come to the daughter of Jerusalem. And we are out of time. Wasting too much time. But I'll tell Jeff.
You did what you were supposed to do.
Yeah. I'll tell
Right
Jeff
on
he's pick it
time.
up. So the key here is, no matter what's going on in your life, no matter what problem you're facing, I always like to finish with lessons for our lives. Lesson for our lives number one: whatever's going on in your life, it's not too big for God. It's not a problem that He has not foresaw. It's not a problem that He's not already prepared for. It's not a problem that He's already have an outcome for. It's already there. It's taken care of. It may be not the way we want it to be, but it's the way He has it designed to be. Okay? And I'm not talking about God's sovereignly moving all the pieces in your life and saying you're going to do this and you're going to take 10 steps forward here. No. I'm talking about it's trust. Laying your trust in the Lord and following Him. 2, you're not too far gone in your life to turn around. Because God can turn your rubble heap into a mighty mountain fortress that people will come to worship Him. Okay? Not you, but Him. You can still be someone that God could use in this life. No matter what you've done, no matter what mess you made, it doesn't matter. Okay? I'm living proof of that. I'm not the greatest person in the world, but God uses me. So, if He can use me, He can use anybody. So, okay, let's pray. Dear Father, thank you for this wonderful day. Thank you for this time we can learn from Micah. I wish we could have time to finish, and I wish it was a little bit more eloquent and a little more knowledgeable. But Lord, I know that you work all things for your honor and glory. You even use a humble servant with a feeble mind and a feeble mouth to bring forth your word. But I pray, Lord, that your message would go forth in our hearts and our minds. And Lord, help us to be encouraged. Help us to live our lives at peace with you. And help us not to live in enmity with you, Lord. Help us to devote ourselves to your law and to the worship of you, that we can be better Christians and better loved ones to our people that are around us. Help us to leave here with more wisdom than we came. And I pray. Amen.